So listen, everybody, welcome to Get Busy Living with Clark Bartram. I am excited to have this guest on today because it's not often that I see someone on a podcast that I get stuck watching it. It's easy for me to pass by things, but when I saw Michael Chan on this podcast, I was absolutely just riveted by his description of how we can live longer, healthier. Brother, how old are you? You're 50, how old?
53.
53. Honestly, you look like you're 38 at the most.
Thank you. Genes and lifestyle, but thank you.
So,
and thank you for the kind words, buddy. Thank you for the kind words.
It's true. So I guess that's a good place to start off is genes and lifestyle, because that's really what it comes down to. It's genetic potential and lifestyle adaptation equals a healthier, longer, more productive life.
Right. Awesome. So look, would it be okay if I gave a bit of background on what it is that I do, just so your audience will get a clearer picture?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got so excited jumping in here. We didn't even get to that. So go ahead.
Right. So my wife and I, we own and operate a chain of longevity centers. We're actually opening, we have 3 anti-aging centers in Manila, Philippines, where I'm from. And we're actually opening the very first ever in the Asia Pacific, a longevity lifespan extension center. So what is that? What's a longevity center? We focus on extending or optimizing human lifespan. In short, how do you stay as young as possible for as long as possible, right? So if I were to ask you right now, Clark, how long do you expect to live?
I would say the first number that popped in my mind was 85.
Right. So that's actually not uncommon. You're actually on the optimistic side. Most people would say somewhere between 75 and 80, right? And this is because that's actually average human lifespan right now. The average human lifespan is currently between 75 to 80 years old. But you have to think about what that really means. When you talk about average human lifespan, right? That's the lifespan for the average human. And what does the average human today look like? The average human today is overweight. The average human today does not exercise, eats a very, very poor nutrition, chronically undersleeps, is chronically stressed. The average human today will be hypertensive and pre-diabetic by the time they're in their 40s, and they will be on 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 maintenance medications by the time they're 65. So in short, when you talk about the average human today is living half of his life sick. And that average human is living until 80. Now, average is not optimal, right? We know that maximal human lifespan is 122. That's how long the oldest recorded human lived. Between 80 and 122, that's 40 years, right? We are nowhere near maximizing lifespan. So in our clinics, in our practice, I always tell people, right? Our goal for our clients is for you to reach a strong 100 years, right? A strong, healthy 100 years. So a lot of people might find that goal audacious, right? But again, what would optimal look like? How long would an optimal human actually live, right? So if you look at it that way, 100 years is not really a stretch. And knowing what I know about what's coming in the field of longevity, I'm telling you right now, Clark, in the next 12 to 15 to 20 years max, that's going to be the new average human lifespan. It's not going to be 80, it's going to be 100 to 120 because of molecules that are coming online, because of genetic treatments, because of stem cells, exosomes, all of those stuff, right? And that's a good place to start, maybe.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those molecules like NMN, right? That's what everyone's talking about today. What are your thoughts on NMN? And is it something that you think, I don't take it, so would I benefit from it? Should I run out and grab some today, or should I find a sponsor to send it to me?
All right. So here's the thing. NMN, it's a precursor molecule to something called NAD. Clark, look, I don't know how technical your audience are, right? I don't know. Stop me if you think I'm getting too deep in the weeds, okay? Just stop me if you think I'm getting too deep in the weeds.
Okay.
NMN is a precursor molecule to an essential molecule called NAD. So NAD is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and it is something that is necessary for life. You need NAD to create cellular energy, to create an energy currency we call ATP. Are you familiar with ATP?
Absolutely.
ATP, right. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. That's what we use for energy. And you need NAD to extract hydrogen from carbon to run it through the electron transport chain to create ATP. Now, when you're young, NAD levels are sky high, right? They're sky high. And this is why little kids can run around the whole day like the Energizer buddy, and they don't run out of energy. It's because they recycle NAD very, very fast, right? They have the ability to create energy on demand, almost on demand. As you age, those levels drop, right? Generally speaking, by the time you're 50, you have half the NAD levels that you had when you were 10, 11, 12, okay? But here's the interesting part. It's highly dependent on lifestyle. Highly dependent on lifestyle. You do have 50, 60-year-olds who have NAD levels of much, much younger people, right? Because of lifestyle. And at the same time, you have teenagers who have very, very low levels of NAD, right? So before you run out and get it, you have to understand something. You have to test first, right? You have to test your NAD levels to see if you're actually a candidate. Because if not, it's very expensive. And if you're not a candidate, then you're just going to be throwing away money.
So how do we test for it, Mike? That's a question that I have. Is it something you test in your blood?
Yes, you can test it in your blood, right? But here's something that, again, I might go deep into the weeds, right?
Go deep, brother. Go deep into the weeds.
All right. So it's not just about taking NMN. The reason why a lot of people take NMN is because NMN is a precursor molecule. It's actually NAD is actually, it's a vitamin D derivative, right? It's actually from niacin. So when you take in food, you convert food to niacin, and then it's nicotinamide riboside, nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN, and then it's made into NAD. So NMN is a direct precursor. There's only one more step to make it into NAD. So that's the most common and that's the most popular molecule that's used right now to boost NAD. All right? But the reason why we run out is not actually because we make less NAD. It's actually because as we get older, we lose the ability to recycle it. Okay? So there is a pathway, this is called the salvage pathway. We don't actually make NAD every single second of the day. Most of the time, the body recycles it. And as we get older, we lose the ability to recycle NAD. And that is why NAD levels drop drastically as we get older. It is actually the body's inability to recycle what we have. Young people can recycle it very fast. But again, if your lifestyle is good, and your inflammation markers are low, right? If HSCRP is low, if your other inflammation markers are low, you should be able to recycle it without having to take the supplements. So it's not a simple question of should I take it or not. I'm getting too deep into the weeds here.
So let me go ahead and stop you there. Then the question would be, to bring it back up a few steps. There are a lot of these clinics that are popping up all over the place where you go get a Myers cocktail, hydration therapy. You see them all over the place. And you had mentioned the fact that it's very expensive to get NAD put in intravenously. And that's like $600-800. So what I heard you say is you don't want to go run in there because someone said, hey, go get that NAD, you're going to feel great. We need to understand if we are truly lacking because of lifestyle, not a good lifestyle, because that'd be part of the reason that we're not recycling it.
Major reason, yes.
Right. So the major reason, which I hear. So me having a healthy lifestyle and me eating right and all of that being included into that equation, the chances of me having lower levels of NAD are not as much as someone who was the opposite of me. So if I wanted to go and check for those levels, how would I do that? What would be the best way to see if I would want to go and have that? Because I have heard people say, I felt so vibrant, I felt so focused. Some people even say I felt sick when I left.
Okay, so there is no perfect way to test for NAD, because NAD in the blood is actually different from NAD inside the cells. So let's not go there right now.
Okay.
Let's not go there right now. For me, the better strategy would be to do what we're doing, which is to track your. So the way we let me backtrack a bit. Okay, the way we like to track longevity, right, is to track for biomarkers, right? Is to track for. Have you ever heard of aging clocks?
Yes.
Aging clocks. You've heard of aging clocks, right? So
Yes.
there are clocks right now on the market that can test your biological age, or how old your body is versus your chronological age, or the age on your birth certificate, right? Generally speaking, if your biological clocks all say, because there are several different times, right? If they all say that your body is younger, it means that your body physiologically is performing at a higher function. And that would generally tell you that NAD levels are still high. Generally, right? There's no 100% foolproof way to say. But the way I do it is I track my sleep, I track my heart rate variability, everything that I can track, I track, right? And if the metrics are good, if the sleep is good, if my heart rate variability is good, if my heart rate, if my blood pressure is good, then that generally means all your systems are working optimally. Because at the end of the day, that's what you need NAD for. You need NAD to create cellular energy, and cellular energy is basically the currency of life. If your cells are functioning well, then because again, there's no perfect way to measure. This tells you that NAD levels are probably still good, right? Again, you can check it in the blood. It's not 100% correlation, but at least it's an indicator.
Okay. So with respect to people going off and purchasing supplements, in your opinion, would NAD be a supplement someone should consider if they're just going out there and purchasing things, say someone over the age of 50? Would it be a wise investment for somebody without going into all of the detail of, checking the blood and all that sort of thing? Is it a good investment?
You're putting me on the spot, right?
Because you see it all over Facebook. Everyone's advertising it, right? So I know that people that follow me, they're looking at these supplements. And my job as a coach is to help direct people. That's why I'm getting, I consider you a genius. You're self-taught. You're someone who, and I know that's hard to accept, and it's maybe overshoot, but I respect your education and I respect the way you deliver the information you have. So me asking you this question is truly me wanting to benefit the people who are listening, because they're going to go spend their money. You know how people are. They're going to go do it. And I would rather have them, someone that I respect, go yes or no.
All right. Okay. So here's the thing. As you age, so again, I need to give you the context of my answer, right? Generally speaking, a lot of what's going on with NAD and NMN, although I do take it, I do take it. I have to confess, I do take it, right? I don't believe it's for everybody. Why? As you age, have you ever heard of inflammaging? Inflammation is basically increased as you age, right?
Yes.
And there are certain proteins, inflammatory proteins, that live off on NAD. They use 100 times more NAD than healthy cells. The higher your inflammation markers, there's a very, very good chance that you're feeding these inflammatory cytokines NAD and causing them to multiply faster than they would have. You're giving them energy. Why? Because these inflammatory cytokines are very, very hungry for energy. Just like cancer cells are very, very hungry for energy, so too are these cytokines, right? So if you're generally healthy, right, if you would test for something called HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, or CEA, or ESR, and they are low, and you're generally healthy, there's a very, very good chance you will benefit from taking NMN, which is what I do.
Because the inflammation is not present.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what I have people do is every person that comes to me for coaching and everyone that hears me, I have a relationship with a company called Merrick Health, and I make people get blood tests because that's the only way we can give anyone any clear direction on how and what to do. So I want to make that very clear. So that's kind of what Mike's trying to kind of skirt around the issue of. You can't really answer these questions without these markers that are only found in your blood. And one of those markers being C-reactive protein to let us know whether or not inflammation is present, because that truly is the foundation of all sickness, right? Is inflammation or sickness is rooted in inflammation.
Yes. So thank you. You summed it up for me perfectly. You summed it up perfectly.
Good. So,
right.
So let's segue from that into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and you had mentioned it earlier, are stem cells. The last time you and I talked, I told you I was in Tijuana, Mexico, and I was going to go get stem cells put into my face just for the way I look, right? Like, I don't want to get Botox. I don't want to do anything like that. But all of what I've been hearing about stem cells is leading me to believe that there's nothing wrong. Like it's only upside. Everything is upside with stem cells, provided you get good ones from the right place and all that sort of thing. So what is your opinion on stem cell therapy, both systemically and isolated?
Right. So Clark, I'm going to take a hard pass on that question because I don't want to offend any stem cell practitioner that might be watching you.
Who cares? I mean, I don't care. And you have an opinion, and that's what it is. And that's what I promise people with this podcast, Mike, is the fact that I want to bring people on. They're going to have an opinion. You don't need to agree with their opinion. Even if you're someone who makes your living from that, your job as a professional, if that is your living, is to be able to have a productive conversation about your feelings being opposite of someone else's feelings. So you have feelings that I respect, and I'm giving you full authority to go ahead and speak on it honestly, because again, people are listening to Joe Rogan, and everybody that comes on Joe Rogan is saying stem cells this, I go to Mexico, I want them, I need them. I want to know the pros and the cons, because if I'm going to go stick them in my face, so I'm asking you like friend to friend, let's just say you're only talking to me and I'm saying, Mike, give me your opinion on what I should do. Like, should I go down there and have that done?
Okay. So as an aesthetic professional, remember, this is what I do for a living, right? This is what I do for a living. We run a chain of skin clinics, right? If your goal is to look physically younger, between stem cells and between Botox, I would go with the Botox, right? That is proven. The problem with stem cells is there's no way to actually tell how they differentiate. So in layman's terms, stem cells are basically blank cells. They have the ability to differentiate, to turn into a somatic, an adult cell.
They're like adaptogenic herbs in a way, right? They adapt to, kind of?
Not necessarily, okay? Again, this goes that it's without getting too technical. When people say stem cells, they assume there's only one type of stem cell. It's the blank cell that can turn into any cell, right? There are actually many different kinds of stem cells, right? So there are stem cells that can turn only into skin. There are stem cells that turn only into bone. And then what you're mentioning are the embryonic stem cells, or the pluripotent stem cells, the kind that you have when you're an embryo, right? That can potentially turn into every different cell in the body, right? Those are the kinds that, when you inject them, are supposed to give the rejuvenating effect, right? So the problem with that is, have you ever heard of the Yamanaka factors?
Yes.
Have you ever heard?
Yes, the 4 Yamanaka. Yes.
Right. So you know that the problem with So Yamanaka factors for your audience, they are genes that when you express them, they can turn a fully differentiated somatic adult stem cell back into a pluripotent or an embryonic stage 0 stem cell, right? The problem is when you turn them back too far, back to 0, they lose their identity. So now the eye cell doesn't know if it's an eye cell. The skin cell doesn't know if it's a skin cell. And when that happens, when they experiment with mice, it turns out that they turn into cancer, right? They turn cancerous because a cancer is basically an immortal cell, and so is a stem cell. It can divide and divide and divide and divide, and a cancer cell keeps on dividing until it kills the host, right? And that's the danger. So we don't want to turn a stem cell back into stage 0 and inject that. So instead, they take different kinds of stem cells, and that's what they put on your skin. And to be perfectly honest with you, there are some good data that shows that they do what they actually do. But from people that I know, like my parents took the stem cells, my uncles took the stem cells, we really didn't see much of a difference. Bang for the buck. With the technology that we have right now, if it's just for skin rejuvenation, I would rather go with hyaluronic acid or Botox. If that answers your question, aesthetically, right? Because in terms of anti-aging, we're not there yet. In terms of age reversal, we're not there yet. Okay?
Got it.
So, yeah.
So if I would not spend money on it if I was, and that's what you had told me last time we talked. You said, if you're getting it for free, go for it. But if you're paying for it, I would advise against it.
Exactly. Just because the science isn't quite there yet.
Okay.
Based on my research, right? And based on the people that I work with in longevity medicine, it's very, very promising. We're getting there. Are we there right now? Not quite.
Right. So I had a few questions that I had written down originally when I was first excited to talk to you. Do you think that comfort is one of the things that's killing us? Like all of the creature comforts that we have in life, is that making us older faster?
100%, 1000%. Remember, the body. So here's what most people don't understand. The body is actually an adaptation machine. It is a supreme adaptation machine. And the way it adapts is you have to challenge it. The way the body becomes stronger. So most people say, when they say, oh, I want comfort, I don't want stress, I already have too much stress in my life. They don't realize it's aging them. Why? Because it's making the body weaker. So imagine this, if you broke your arm, right? And it had to be in a cast for several months. You know what will happen when the cast comes off, right? The arm that was in the cast will severely deteriorate, right? It will atrophy to half the size of the other arm that's being used. The same thing happens to the human body. We were designed, so when people say, oh, stress is bad, that's actually not true, right? Stress, the right kind of stress is actually good. You need stress to grow. You need stress to develop. What happens when you take a human and shoot him out into outer space? The bones degrade, the muscles degrade because you remove just the stress of gravity. Simply removing the stress of gravity, right, will give the person high blood pressure, will give the person low muscle mass, will make the person osteoporotic, right? So it's the same thing. The human body was designed around stress. If you stress your mitochondria or the powerhouse of the cell, right, it adapts by forming more mitochondria. It makes you stronger. It makes the organism more viable. You remove the stress, the reverse happens. So if a person is bedridden for several weeks, right, and you make the person get up, what's going to happen? He's going to wobble. The first few days he's going to wobble because he's lost so much muscle, right? He's lost so much muscle that his body has to regenerate the whole thing all over again. So yes, stress is extremely important, the right kind of stress.
So would you consider fasting a stress that is good for you?
Okay, so again, it depends, right? So the studies show that if you're over 65, chronic fasting will actually shorten your life. Yes, you have to look at it from the lens of age. When you're young, you have the ability to. Okay, so one of the hallmarks of aging is called nutrient malabsorption, right? You lose the ability to take in nutrients as you get older. If you're a young person, if you're 19 or 20, and I give you 100 grams of protein, you're going to take that 100 grams of protein and you're going to use all of it to generate new muscle, to generate hormones. But when you're 70, when you're 80, right, you probably absorb 30-40% less. So fasting you at this stage, and remember, older people generally will eat less because they have less caloric requirements, right? Unless you're really, really active, unless you're someone like yourself. So if you fast these people and they don't have the ability to take in all the nutrients, you're restricting calories. And by definition, you're also restricting nutrients. So there's never one blanket. Oh, is it good to fast? Is it good for autophagy? I know why you're asking, right? For autophagy, for mitophagy, for cellular repair, all of those things are good. But if you're not chronically overeating all the time, what's the point of fasting, right, Clark? So I'm going to ask you this: if you're eating a eucaloric diet, right? If you're not over-consuming like most people are, there's really not much point in restricting your calories all the time because you're getting just enough, right? Because you're active, you need your vitamins, you need your minerals, you need your proteins. Once in a while doing it is a good idea, but even Peter Attia, if you know of Peter Attia.
I was listening to Peter Attia today. I was going to ask you about him and some of what I was listening to today, but go on.
Right. I just saw a recent podcast of his, and he was saying he gave up fasting. I don't know if I understood this in the way that he meant to say it, because I jumped in the middle of the podcast. But he was saying during the period of his life when he was doing a lot of fasting, he lost so much muscle mass that he eventually left the practice, from what I understand.
Right.
Right.
So, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break and we're going to do a couple commercials. And then I'm going to send you back another Zoom link because, again, we had some technical difficulties here. So I'm going to send you some numbers again. We're going to continue this conversation. And I want to pick it up when we come back with your recent accident and how you being in the condition that you're in helped save your life. One of the number one things that I do to stay in shape year round is have my meals prepped all the time. And it's not my wife prepping them. It's not me prepping them. It's Icon Meals doing the prepping for me. They're professionals. This is what they do for a job. And let me tell you, with the discount code Clark and the free shipping that you'll get, you probably can't make meals for the same amount of money that you will invest getting meals from Icon Meals. So here's what I want you to do. If you're interested on any level on being prepared all the time and having nutrition dialed in, head over to iconmeals.com right now, use the promo code Clark and save and see how it improves your life like it's improved mine and so many others. So head on over to iconmeals.com right now. All right, we're back with Mike Chan here, brother. This is such a great conversation. This excites me so much because, you know, I'm nearly a 60-year-old guy, and my goal is to stay young, look young, function young, be an athlete, be strong. So there's a lot of conversation today. We had mentioned Peter Attia, and I like what I'm hearing from him. He was talking in the podcast that I watched today about what he feels is one of the single most important factors in longevity, and he was talking about cardiovascular strength. Zone 2, Zone 5 training. So what is your opinion on that? What is the single most important thing we should focus on to create a longer, healthier life? Because we're talking about health span now, not lifespan.
All right. So, yes, I definitely agree with everything that the guy is saying. VO2 max, your physiologic headroom. Physiologic headroom is having higher than average physical strength, muscle mass, balance, flexibility, all of those things, right? Respiratory fitness, VO2 max, right? They have been shown to be very, very protective against all-cause mortality, right? You're 3.5 less likely to die of any cause if these parameters are high. So somebody like you is already on the right track. Can I veer the conversation away from that? Because that's kind of basic. Everybody already knows that in order to live long, you have to be physically fit and you have to have good lung capacity, right? So if you were to ask me what's the single most important thing, I would have to say it's tracking. It is tracking your physiologic functions. Why? Because most people, they don't plan for how they age, right? Most people will never, ever plan for, they don't have a blueprint for how they will age. So let me throw the question at you, right, Clark? If I were to ask you, right, would it be possible for a 60-year-old to be as strong as a bull and be and have ripped abs and a ripped body? What would you say to that? What would you say to that? Would it be possible for a 60-year-old to have the body of an athlete?
I would say absolutely, 100%, beyond a shadow of a doubt, no question in my mind.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, no question in your mind, right? That's true. But you have to understand the reason why you can say that easily is because you're living it, right? You've been in that space for so long, it's actually second nature to you, right? But think about this, 99.9% of 60-year-olds will be nowhere near you. If you ask 99% of 60-year-olds, would it be possible to have a body like Clark? If they've never seen you, they would say, no, that's impossible. He's taking steroids. He must be on some performance-enhancing drug, right? But because you've trained your body, to be like that, to adapt in such a way that the only way it will survive is to have that physique, right? Then you know that it's possible. So people never train for old age. Remember that. People, they underestimate the effects of age on their body. And so they will never train for old age. They will hope, they will pray that they get lucky and age well, right? But that's like winning the lottery. That's like winning the lottery, right? Very, very few people, as a matter of fact, if I say only 1%, probably less, will look like you by the time they're 60. It's the same. The same is true for longevity. It's unnatural for the human animal to live to a century. It's actually unnatural. Why do we know that? Because less than 1% of us actually reach 100, right? And less than 1% will actually look like you. But with science, with training, with knowledge, can it be done? Definitely, 100%, beyond the shadow of a doubt, right? You've done it. 99% haven't, right? But you have, so you know how it's done. So if there's one key takeaway that I'd like to leave your audience with is that you have to track how you're aging. You have to be able to train your body to live 100 years if you are planning to live that long. Because remember, if I asked you how long you're planning to live, you said 85. Most people will say 80, right? You're giving away 20 good years just by thinking about that. Think about this. If you were 65 and if you were out of shape, right? And I said to you, oh, Clark, dude, man, you have to take care of your diet. You have to lose the weight. You have to get rid of the diabetes. And you know that in order for you to do that, you'd have to give up the junk food. You'd have to give up sleeping late. You'd have to start working out. You'd think to yourself, yeah, you know, I'm 65. I have 10 years left, right? I might as well enjoy the 10 years, right? But what if your mentality was, hey, wait a minute. I think I can only reach 75. But I know, what if I have 35 years left? What if I can actually reach 100, right? All of a sudden, it's a different story. All of a sudden, it's not such a chore to start to eat right, to start to exercise because you know you have another 35 years left instead of 10, another 35. And if you don't track these things, if you don't track how you're aging, if you don't have a clear goal on what it is you want your body to look like, if you don't have a clear goal of what your marginal decade is going to look like, so the marginal decade is the last 10 years of your life, right? Most people will not plan for the last 10 years of their life. But if you're planning, you say, oh, you know what? I want to be able to still carry my granddaughter, my great-granddaughter up a flight of stairs and put her to bed. I want to be able to hike with my younger friends and go wherever. If you start planning that way, right, then you know that if I want to be strong at 80, if I want to be strong at 90, if I want to be this strong, I have to be this strong now. Because you know you're going to lose 8 to 10% of your strength, of your physical capacity every decade, right? So if you want to be able to carry a 40 kilo child up a flight of stairs by the time you're 90, you have to be able to carry twice that now, right? So you have a benchmark and you have to track these things. You have to train for old age. I'm sorry if I rambled there.
No, I love that. And I heard Peter Attia saying the same. He called it the Centurion Marathon or Heptathlon or something, where he had these 10 things that he wanted to do when he reached 100 years old. And all of them, you reversed it out. It's almost like reverse engineering your life in a way. So we had talked about the fact that you had an accident recently and you attributed a quick recovery and possibly not dying to the fact that you're in shape, you're muscular, you're strong, which, by the way, when you stick your arm out, you got an impressive tricep there, brother. Your arms are looking good, man. I just want to recognize that.
Thank you.
So tell us about what happened here and why you think that being strong at an older age, not that you're old, is important, though, because that's really what we're talking about.
Right. So for your audience who might not know this, I actually wrote a book on longevity. It's called The Science of Aging Well. And when I was doing research on the book, I found a surprising statistic that the third or fourth leading cause of death in people over 65 is falling. Right? They fall, they break a hip, they shack their head, and many will not leave the hospital. Right? So because of the shape we're in, I mean, because you're very active, and so am I tend to fall a lot, right? My sport is practical shooting. For those of you who don't know what practical shooting is, it's you run around different courses of fire shooting at different targets, right? And because I compete in the senior division, I have fallen multiple times. But when I have fallen, I've always been able to brace myself, to brace my fall. So we have enough muscle mass so that even if I'm running flat out and I fall, I'm able to brace myself. And it's nothing. It's nothing. But the way I fell in the bathroom. It was a stupid accident, so I wouldn't go into the details. But I wasn't able to brace myself that time, and I fell face first in hard marble tiles. And I knocked myself out. And when I came to, the pain was terrible. The right side of my face was swollen. I cracked my neck. I couldn't move. I still have very limited mobility now. I gave myself a concussion, and the left side of my body, it's at maybe 50%, 60% strength-wise, right? So there's still a lot of weakness here. And when I experienced that, I came to a realization that if you were an older individual and you did not have that muscle mass to be able to break your fall, if you did not have the bone density that comes with muscle mass, right? If you did not have the bone density, you fall like that, face first. I don't see how a frail individual could possibly survive something like that. Honestly. It's a horrific. Have you ever experienced something like that?
No, well, actually, I did. I'll tell you the story. I was putting away a Christmas tree up in the garage. So I'm on a ladder. I have the long box in a very awkward position. And the next thing I hear is the garage door opening. Boom. And I'm like, oh no, there's no way out of this because of the position I was in. So I look to my left and I catch eyes with my son who's in the car, and he's looking at me like, oh shit. And the garage door hit the box, knocked me down. There was a spin bike next to me. I landed halfway on my ribs over the bike and kind of folded in half. And like you said, if I wasn't in shape, I possibly would have broke my back. I certainly would have had way more injuries than I did. I was all scraped up and I was sore for a few days and more pissed off than anything else that, but it was truly an accident. But that's, like you said, it's one of the number one causes of people dying. And if they don't die from the fall, they die from pneumonia in the extended care facility or whatever it is, because they're just not healthy enough to handle going back to the stress, right? So that's why we need stress when we're younger to be stronger. It's like lifting weights. Stress is like lifting weights. And that's something I hear people say a lot, Mike, is the fact that, oh, we got to eliminate stress. I said, no, you need to manage it better, right? Not eliminate it. We have to have it in our life. So it's, yeah, man. So plug your book again. I want everyone to get your book. I personally, I want an autographed copy, honestly. I'd love to get. So
I'll send you one, I promise.
I definitely want that, because this is a subject matter that I think everyone should have a little bit more than a working knowledge in, right?
Exactly.
So with tracking, is sleep probably the single most important thing to track in your opinion, or is it something else? I realize it's a lot of things, but.
Yes. Sleep is definitely up there. Heart rate variability, your blood pressure, all because, so look, the reason why I say it's very, very important to track is because most people don't realize that the science to extend life, it's not coming. It's actually here. And the reason why most people don't know about it is because every time there's a new technology, it takes about 50, 60 years for it to trickle down to the general public, right? So I'm going to give you an example. Heart transplant, right? It's a very, very common life-saving procedure. Everybody knows about heart transplant. But if you ask doctors 50 years ago, if it was possible to do a heart transplant, you would have been laughed out of the room. 50 years ago, right? If you say, is it possible to take a healthy human heart that from a dead person and put it in the heart of a dying person with heart disease, every doctor would have said no. Almost every doctor would have said no. But I want to give you the history. The very first successful heart transplant was done in 1963. 1963, yes. But do you know when the first attempted heart transplant was? It was first recorded in 1905. Since 1905, they have been trying to take a healthy heart and put it into a heart of replace the diseased heart with it, right? And for 60 years, they couldn't do it. Could not be done. Couldn't start the heart, couldn't stop it properly, the infections, the rejections. And the consensus was, among all the experts, was that it was impossible. It's impossible to take a living heart and put it in another human, right? But the minute the human animal first discovered how to do it, 1963, right? From that time on, now everybody started doing it. 50 years later, if you ask a lay person, would it be possible to take a heart and put it in another human? Everyone would say yes. Of course, everyone would say yes. Now we're not even talking about just heart transplant. 2022, last year, was the first successful pig heart transplant. Have you heard about that? Right?
Yep.
They've been, so the organs of a pig are very, very similar to that of humans, and they've been able to take the heart of a pig and put it in a human. And that guy survived for several months, right? So we're not even talking about just heart transplant. We're talking about growing organs now to replace other organs with, right? So the technology to reverse aging, that's already been discovered, right? All of these molecules were discovered 20 years ago. The Yamanaka factors, they were discovered 2006. And the reason why most people have never heard about them is because it will take another 20, 30 years for it to trickle down to you guys, okay? So here's the thing. The technology to reverse aging is already here, right? And the blueprint to reach a strong 100 years is becoming clearer and clearer day by day. When I say 100 years strong for our members, for our clients, most people would find that audacious. Most people would be incredulous, right? But just like it's possible to train your body to do something unnatural, right? Like to look like you, that's very unnatural. You have to agree with me, right?
Yes.
That 99% of people will never look like you. That's unnatural. But if somebody were to dedicate his life to it, if somebody were to say for the next 5 years, I would train this way, I would supplement this way, I would eat this way, hell, I would even take anabolic steroids just to look like you, it's possible, right? It's possible. It's not normal for man to be able to glide on ice, to be able to spin on ice, right? But with the right training and with ice skates, we know it can be done. So it's the same thing with longevity. We already have a blueprint. We know that if you are disease-free by the time you're 65, disease-free, meaning you don't have hypertension, you don't have high blood sugar, you don't have coronary artery disease, there's a very strong chance you're going to live to 100. We know that if you have a high physiologic headroom, if you have above average muscle mass, above average grip strength, above average gait speed and balance and flexibility, you have a stronger chance of reaching 100. We know that if your CAC score is 0, we know that if you have 0 coronary artery, 0 plaque in your arteries, thank you, because I didn't want to get too technical again. And your ApoB, so these are the atherogenic particles, the atherogenic lipoproteins. If they are less than 40 milligrams per deciliter, you're practically never going to get heart disease, right? We know that if you screen for cancer every year, because cancer, if detected early, has a very high cure rate, right? We know that if you screen for cancer every year, we could probably eliminate cancer, right? And you have a strong chance of reaching 100 years. But how many people do you know? How many people do you know do that? How many people do you know actually do yearly cancer screening? How many people do you know what their CAC score is, or who know about apolipoB, right? So not many. You're right. When it comes to longevity, people should have above average knowledge. It can't just be, well, I'm hoping for the best. I'm going to try to eat healthy. I'm going to try to exercise and hope for the best. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a training plan, just like you have a program for you to transform your clients from being obese and overweight to being fit. And you have a program to maintain, 8% body fat? Is that 8% body fat? It should be, right?
It's probably close to that now. So,
right. So 7, 6, or whatever. What I'm seeing is, if you don't have a program, if you're not tracking, then it's really you're flying blind. And when it comes to aging, most people are flying blind. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know what to do, what sort of interventions will work and what wouldn't. And to be fair, nobody does. No, not even the leading experts. They have ideas, right? But again, the blueprint is there. The blueprint of maximizing your chances of reaching 100 years is already developed. Just like most people will never probably reach 5%, 6% body fat, even if they tried. But 10% is more than good enough, right? Even if we never reach 120 years, if we can reach 100 years still strong, still able to do, still not dependent on anyone to do our basic functions for us, that's already a win. That's already a win. Versus being frail and old and bedridden at 80. That's the alternative. That's what most people are looking at right now. For most people who don't plan for how they will age, the last 5% of their lives are going to be abject misery. Abject misery.
One of the things that I think is important for people, as I listen to you, you have such a strong belief in what it is that you're saying, and there's no denying the fact that you are absolutely 100% convinced that everything you're saying is true. Here's the problem. Most people don't feel that way. They don't have the belief. And earlier, when you were talking about the heart and when we knew it was possible to transplant a heart, I started thinking about Roger Bannister in running the 4-minute mile, right? So the science then, back when Roger Bannister was attempting to run a 4-minute mile, they said, if you do this, your heart will blow up. It will explode inside your body. So it was fear and disbelief that caused people to not do it. Suddenly, this Roger guy comes along and says, screw you people, I'm going to do it and I'll die trying if that's truly the case. And when he didn't, everybody who could then started to do it because the belief went up. So that's the way I live my life. And that's why my testosterone levels are high with no TRT. Like I do nothing. I do no TRT. I barely take any supplements, honestly. I track my blood. I know what's in there. I know what I need to supplement because I look at my blood and I apply the knowledge based upon what I've learned there. So yeah, man, I wish more people would have an opportunity to be around people like you and me.
on an aside, because when you reached out to me, I showed my wife your picture. I go, look at this guy. The guy is 57. 57, am I correct?
I'm 59.
59. Holy cow. So I showed my wife your picture. And I go, this guy's 57. And she goes, and according to him, he doesn't take any testosterone. He doesn't take any steroids. And my wife goes, that's impossible. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. But knowing what I know about science, I do believe you. I go, I believe this guy. I actually believe him. And I think that's the thing, right, Clark? It's about knowledge. The reason why most people don't believe is they don't have the information that we do. They don't know that if you would do, I saw you doing the cold plunge and the sauna, the hot and cold therapy. I see you do high intensity training. I see you try to control your sleep. And all of these things, we already know they boost testosterone. So why is it so surprising? Why is it so surprising? It's because these people, they have zero idea. They don't know what the science is. They have no idea. And the reason I am so confident talking to you about these things, about lifespan extension, is because I've already seen the technology. I've already seen what's coming in the pipeline. Our group is working with different labs from all over the world, different experts from all over the world. And our goal is to try to put together that blueprint to maximize human lifespan, because we're nowhere near, right? We're nowhere near. And because I have that information, then I can speak with confidence. Because you've been doing what you're doing, then you can speak with confidence and say to me, oh, absolutely, you can have a 6-pack you can have an 8-pack at 60, right? So it's all about information. So let me share with you some information that might surprise you, right? The information is this. Most people believe that extensions in human lifespan, they come in small baby steps, right? So for the past 100 years, we have been steadily increasing human lifespan, right? It's about a year every year, we're extending human lifespan. In the beginning of 1900, the average human lifespan was 40, right? And now, 100 years later, it's 80, right? What most people don't realize is that they don't come in small steps. They come in giant leaps forward. Giant leaps forward. Imagine this. We have been developing for a million years. For the 4.5 million years we've been developing as humans, right? Average lifespan for 99.999% of that time was only 35 years. 35 years, right? So if we were living 100 years ago, there's a better than 50-50 chance that you and I are already going to be gone, okay? And so what happened? Why were we able to, the human animal, right, is the only species that's been able to do this. In a span of 5 generations, in a span of 100 years, we've been able to double our lifespan. Double our lifespan, right? No other animal has been able to do this in such a short time. In 0.1% of our existence, we've been able to double it. How? How were we able to do that? 2 things. The invention of the microscope and the invention of antibiotics and antivirals. That's it, vaccines. Before the 1900s, the top 10 leading causes of death were all infectious diseases: pneumonia, tuberculosis, influenza, the Black Plague, right? These are all infectious diseases. And when science conquered infectious diseases, it just took us 100 years to get the technology all over the world, right? But the technology was available 100 years ago, antibiotics. When we discovered the cure for infectious diseases, all of a sudden you double your lifespan. Now we're trying to find the cure for aging, right? So the next frontier, the next barrier we have to conquer is, as we're approaching maximal lifespan, is physical degeneration, right? Now, most of us are living long enough to watch our bodies physically deteriorate in front of our eyes while we're still living in it, right? So when you talk about the top 10 leading causes of death right now, heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia, these aren't actually diseases, right? They are the end stage of life, right? When a heart's been beating 80 years, there's going to be wear and tear, right? When DNA, when cells are replicating for 80 years, there's going to be mutations. There's going to be cancer. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right? Now, scientists are finding a way to slow down the degenerative process, right? And we're making very, very good headway. But what's being discussed right now, what's really exciting, is actual age reversal, to actually reverse physical aging, right? And with AI technology, with exponential learning, because most people think that progress is linear, right? Most people it's not. It's exponential. The more we discover, the faster we learn. And with AI technology, they're saying age reversal, it's going to come in the next 15 to 20 years. So our job, you and I, and everybody listening right now, is to be able to stay healthy enough, is to be able to stay as fully functional or as optimal, so that when that technology finally comes online, we will be in a position to take advantage of it, right? Because you've heard the saying that prevention is better than cure, correct? Right? So there are some damages that are still very hard for us to reverse right now. Once you have certain kinds of damage, the body generally can't repair if the damage is extensive enough. So we have to be as optimal as possible right now, so that in 20 years' time, when reversal finally comes online, if it does, then we will be in a position. But really, there's no downside to it, because that means you're going to have to stay as strong as possible for as long as possible. And there's no downside to that. There's zero, absolutely zero downside, right? Being as optimal as possible.
Yeah. So as strong as possible for as long as possible. That's a great title for a book. Couple things before we end this. Number one, tell your wife that I am 100% natural. I do not do anything. And I want to come to your clinic. Like, if someone wanted to come to your clinic, what would a person do to come there and experience what it is that you provide for them? Is that an opportunity that people have?
Unfortunately, you'd have to come to the Philippines. Right?
I've been there before,
right?
when I was a Marine.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So we got 10 minutes left. So we got to wrap this up here in the next 10 minutes.
Right. So unfortunately, there's no one single treatment, Clark. So if people are going to come and hope for a magic pill that will help them reverse aging or help, unfortunately, that pill does not exist. They would be better off going to you. But if they were to come to me, we have this program, right? We have a longevity program. It's called bio-optimization, right? Wherein what we do is we take a baseline, but it's a very, very extensive baseline. It's not just blood work. A lot of it is blood work. We also do MRI. We also do cancer screening. We do coronary artery calcium scores. So it's a whole slew of things that we use: blood age, glycan age, DNA markers, right? A methylation age. We use all of these things to get a baseline. Where are you now, right? How old are you chronologically? How old are you biologically? And then we execute a plan that in 1 year's time, right? In 1 year's time, you have to go from X to Y. So if you're, let's say, if you're 59 and your biological age is 57, how can we get you to 55, 54? But if you're 59 and your biological age is 66, boy, we have a lot of work to do. How do we get you to at least the correct biological age, right? And that takes a program. That's where the tracking comes in place, right? Because what we do is no human doctor can monitor you day in, day out. You have to be an active participant. And if I were to show you, I want to show you something on my phone, right? I want to show you, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but look at this. This is my data. So this is my data from my sleep last night, right? So we obviously track that, but look at this. This is my heart rate every 5 minutes. My blood pressure every 5 minutes, right? You see what we're doing here. We're tracking every possible metric using wearables, patches, and rings, right? So that I have a real-time data on everything that you're doing. Every time your blood sugar spikes, you send me a picture of what you're eating, and then we know you can't be eating these foods, right? So that's how we do it. And we do it using artificial intelligence. We have a platform where all your data automatically goes into that platform, right? And the AI algorithms, they can allow us real time to see that this is how this particular exercise affects this person. This is how this particular food affects this person. And then we give you a report. There's a monthly assessment. We do this, we do that, we do that. Because it's very personal. Like your genes are very different from mine, right? What will work for you will not necessarily work for me. And so it's personalized tracking, it's using AI, and it's personalized medicine. So again, going back to when you were saying, should I take NMN? That's the reason why I'm saying it depends.
Right.
It depends, right? Now you understand why.
Yeah, this has been a fascinating discussion. So I guess to bring this all back to help people get educated, because that's the goal that we both have, is for people to educate themselves. How can they get your book? Where do they go to order your book? And what is your Instagram handle so they can follow you and see what you're up to?
Right. So I'm hardly on Instagram.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm hardly on Instagram, but it's Mike Chan Official on Instagram. But I'm on TikTok a lot. That's where I put all my data, and it's Mike Chan Longevity.
Okay.
Mike Chan Longevity on TikTok, right? They can find me there. On Facebook, it's Mike Chan. And the book is available on Amazon. So you can get a digital copy or you can get a hard copy. It's The Science of Aging Well, How to Look 20 Years Younger by Mike Chan, right? But Clark, before we go, when Gaia opens, when our longevity center opens, sometime July or August, it's called the House of Gaia. It's a resort. It's in the middle of nature. It's in the middle of a mahogany plantation. It's beautiful. I will personally invite you to come over if you have the time and experience what it is we do there. Right?
Brother, I can come. I would love to come because now I feel connected to you. We're like brothers on a mission to really help people live a better life through the information that we have. And I think our information really molds together really well. You know, I felt a connection with you when I watched you on those two guys' podcasts. I said, I got to reach out. I got to find this dude because he's doing great work, man. And I just want to applaud you, brother, for doing the work that you're doing. And I really, truly want to come because I was in the Philippines in 1983 playing rugby as a young Marine, and I would love to go back. I was at Clark Air Force Base, and I know that's not there anymore, but I will take you up on that invitation.
Dude, it's very different now. You should come. It's very different.
I'll definitely come.
Very different. And Clark, may I say, I came across you when you messaged me, and I was seeing your videos, and I was going, this guy is amazing. The discipline that you have, what it is that you're trying to do, right? It's an inspiration. To be perfectly honest with you, I realized after watching you that even with my high standards, I have set the bar too low. Because now that I've seen you, dude, I have set the bar too low for myself, because now I'm going to ramp it up as soon as I recover. As soon as I recover from this injury, I'm going to ramp it up because I don't go to the gym. I'm going to start going now, right?
Right on, brother, man. Well, listen,
Right.
everyone, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. Go get the book. And as always, get busy living and make it a great day.
Thank you so much, Clark. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.